High alert, terrorist sympathisers on Talkback TV. Too cool for school, are feminist extremists scaring the next generation off? And interest rate debate, big banks reap in billions while we pay the way. Hello and welcome to Backlash, the show where opinions matter the most and controversy is king. And with me in the studio each and every week, the women who say it how it is, Rendezvous editor Sarah Lemarquand and news.com.au's Melissa Hoyer. Ladies, a warm welcome to you again. Let's get straight into this week's first topic. And as new laws which see citizenship stripped from dual nationals fighting with Islamic State are introduced, the ABC has made a bold move allowing a known terrorist sympathiser onto its Q&A audience panel. The move has caused much backlash, with Prime Minister Tony Abbott publicly asking the ABC whose side it's on. The project's co-host Waleed Ali also claims some might have interpreted what the terrorist sympathiser had to say as a call to take up arms with Islamic State. Well, Miranda Devine says the ABC keeps giving this terrorist sympathiser a platform, inciting him to ever more extreme behaviour and allowing him to insult the Muslim community by posing as a reasonable representative of disaffected youth. Well, do you agree, and should we even be talking about him? Aren't we just fueling the beast, Sarah?
Yes, I think giving him too much legitimacy is really unfair to everyone, and certainly he is, as Miranda Devine said, a known terrorist sympathiser. To put him up as some sort of Muslim activist, as some programs do, is really unfair. There are lots of very passionate people within the Islamic community who have no ties or affiliation or affinity whatsoever for terrorist organisations, so there would have to be much better spokespeople. I think it was probably an ambush situation. I don't necessarily agree that someone like him should never be allowed near the media. I think it's important to let people say their piece, and I think that's how you expose hatred and ignorant ideas, is by shining a light on them, even if it is a camera light. But I thought Waleed Ali handled things very well, because they didn't ban him from their screen, but he was challenged on his ideas, and I think there's a real place for that. Don't shut it down necessarily, but challenge people rather than applauding them, as we saw the Q&A audience
to the next point. While the ABC has admitted it made an error in judgment, isn't this just taking the other side of the debate away from what's supposed to be an objective broadcaster facilitating an objective discussion, Mel? We're journalists, we like the balance.
Exactly, and sure, he can and he did say what he wanted to say, whether we agree with him or not, and I'm sure most of us don't agree at all with his world. It's an odd one, but the ABC did get him into that audience knowing he would be asking the question that he did. I worry that they're looking now for their next sensational headline. I mean, are we looking at Q&A turning into a current affair or Today Tonight? You sort of just don't expect them to basically put someone like him in the audience and then talk to the panel as he did. It was bad. The ABC admitted it was bad, but I thought it was interesting that only literally hours after they did apologise. So they obviously knew something wasn't quite right. The whole thing just wasn't handled well. Yes, freedom of speech is out there. We have every right to say what we like, but by having this man on the public broadcaster's really flagship program was not a good idea.
All right, our next topic now, and feminist writer Clementine Ford sent the internet into a Kardashian-style breakdown last Friday after she posted this semi-naked photograph of herself with what you can see there written across her chest. Now, the backlash was over comments the TV show made on social media about young women sending nude pics of themselves to their partners. It basically implied it was the victim's own fault their nudity shots got leaked all over the net, not that of the thieves who stole the images without their permission or knowledge. Now, while Clementine's protest certainly made a point, some argue she's taken the feminist rhetoric to the extreme, causing a much-needed discussion to be shut down. Sarah, please explain, because I know this issue is particularly close to your chest, quite literally, when you take a look at this, which is none other than our very own Sarah Lamarque.
That's right. And look, a picture tells 1,000 words, and that picture told 1,000 words. Look, I don't disagree with the basic thesis behind what Clementine Ford said. A lot of people would agree, male or female, that if your photos are being published without your consent, and especially on a really ugly revenge porn website as it was, then that's a vile act. It should incur criminal penalties, and your first reaction shouldn't be, why do women keep taking these photos? That's victim blaming. Agreed. Where my point is a broader one, which I call them the cool girls of feminism. In Australia, there are some very vocal voices on social media, which is great, and they're angry and abrasive, and they talk to their specific demographic. Fantastic. The problem is the women that it's alienating, the younger women particularly, that simply won't identify as feminists because they think you have to fit that one size fits all. It's a very narrow definition. There's a lot of bullying if you dare to veer outside the parameters. There actually is a really important conversation to be had to young girls with no judgment or victim blaming, but saying, hey, don't feel pressured into taking photos of yourself naked and sending them to someone. What lives on in the internet will far outlive a short-lived romance when you're a teenager, and I think we should be able to have these conversations. There's a lot more room for nuance than the cool girls of feminism allow.
Well, Sarah, as you say, the cool girls of feminism are dominating the discussion on social media. Mel, you're a prominent figure on social media. Do you agree with that these cool cats are in fact alienating younger women away from feminism, even in its most mildest form?
That's right. I mean, the word feminism, has so many nuances, has so many meanings. But yeah, it does worry me that sometimes just young girls out there who are still looking for their place in society, still looking for their own self-worth, their own being, they may look at some of these women and think, oh my God, do I have to be abrasive? Do I have to seem angry in order to be a feminist? I'm all about humanism, to be honest. The whole term feminism has been used in so many good and bad ways. I'm sort of sick to death of it, to be honest. And you have someone like Meryl Streep coming out today and writing a letter to the American Congress wanting just equality for women. I'm all about wanting equality as using the word feminist so often. So I think, I do worry that they do taint what can be and should be a good conversation about feminism.
All right, our last topic of the week now, and interest rates are at a record low 2%. It's never been so cheap to borrow money, but as most mortgage holders know, the big banks haven't been passing on the Reserve Bank's rate cuts in full. As a result, most home loan rates sit anywhere between 4 to 6%. Now, this angers many customers and consumers out there. There's an even more shocking interest rate problem going on, actually, and many of us are completely naive to it. Not only do Australian credit cards have ridiculously high interest rates, they have the highest in the world. I stress that. At last count, Australia's credit card debt sits around $46 billion. Now, while the GFC was a reminder to everyone that debt can indeed be a bad thing, the willingness to incur debt is actually a positive economic indicator. So in saying that, isn't it time the politicians really once and truly push their policy onto the banks, which encourages those rates to come down in line with the Reserve Bank and encourages consumers to borrow more?
Yes, absolutely. We look, the big bank bashing, they call it, because it's an issue that comes up time and time again, and we hear politicians successively say we're going to take on the banks, and none of them ever seem to do it, not with any success. Just stop talking about this. I think that's outrageous that we have the highest credit card interest rates in the world. That's terrible, and so many people, sure, they get themselves into that situation, but if you're in spiralling financial hardship, that you're not being helped along by a greedy bank. So no, I don't sympathise with the banks. It's time for the government to crack down on them.
Well, this year the Big Four reaped in $11 billion of profits, again cementing them as a force to be reckoned with. But have they become too big to the point that consumers are too scared to take them on, Mel?
I think that's the problem. We just assume the Big Four do totally rule the roost, and to a degree they do. But there are other alternatives. But again, it's just a matter of time for you, as all of us, as consumers, as borrowers, as people who need banks to live our everyday life. You have to do your research and work out where else can I go in order not to pay these ridiculous interest fees. It's there. So it takes time to do that. And I think we all are lacking in time, so you just need to really do it. But it's easier said than done, taking on big banks.
Yeah, and it's interesting. There is a lot of power to the people, like force in numbers. So
Excellent. Maybe a big class action.
we shouldn't give up just yet. Okay, ladies, before we end up, let's take a quick look at this week's shock frock. And we have seen stripes in the past and a bit of a pyjama theme, showing a little bit of a fashion stake. You can see Lady Gaga here at the Songwriters Hall of Fame. She got an award, but some have questioned that the award was only given, check out those shoes. Some questioned the award was only given so that she would merely be on the guest list. Either way, she looks a treat.
Well, I've seen her look worse, but it is sort of a barber pole meets pyjamas. Look, she's ready for bed. Hey.
As you say, we've all seen her look worse. This is a woman that wore a meat dress, so
Exactly.
anything that isn't from a butcher's shop is an improvement.
All right, that is all we have time for. More Backlash next week. See you then.